Hi, today is Wednesday, July 19th, 2017, and this is A Swede Speaks. And well, there is this conversation or discussion on BBC about a week ago that's going viral right now between a British reporter named, what was her name again? Babita Sharma. I suppose she's of Indian ancestry with that name, and a Nigerian-born pro-life activist named Obianuju Ekeocha. And that's a pretty interesting discussion that I think we should watch a little of it, and or we should watch it and we should comment on it. Well, I'll comment. We'll watch it and see what happens. Let's see here. So this is a really primitive way of doing things, I know, but let's watch a part of it.
To pro-life campaigner Obianuju Ekeocha from the Society for the Protection of Unborn Children. She's also the founder and president of Culture of Life Africa. She's in our studio in Birmingham and joins us now. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program. And we just saw Karen's piece there. The fact remains that hundreds of millions of women do not have access to contraception.
Now, in that report that you had just played now, it's kind of confusing because you first of all started talking about HIV and access to contraception. Then you're trying to conflate it with something like the provision of abortion in a place like South Africa, which is one of the few African countries that actually has legal abortion. Just to point out that about 80% of the African countries actually don't have legal abortion. And they don't have legal abortion not because they can't legalize abortion. We all have parliaments, we have governments that can go through the process of legalizing abortion. But actually, an overwhelming majority of the African people continue to reject abortion, even as surveys. I think Pew Research had done a survey a couple of years ago and found out, in some countries as high as 90-something% of the people still continue to reject the idea of legalized abortion. So I don't understand, are we talking about abortion? Are we talking about contraception? They're two different things. If we're talking about abortion, well, I don't think that any Western country has the right to pay for abortions. In an African country, especially where the majority of people don't want abortion, then that then becomes a form of ideological colonization, as we're beginning to see it more and more.
Yeah, you can see why I think she's great, or well, at least that she's saying great things. Because what's going on here is that Western left liberals want to push their agenda on more conservatively minded Africans. Isn't that an interesting thought? Well, let's watch a little more of this and see how the conversation goes.
If we talk about contraception, the fact remains that hundreds of millions of women don't have access and should.
Well, you're saying should, but who are you to decide if you don't mind me saying?
Well,
because there isn't a popular demand, ma'am. There isn't a popular demand. If you go to Africa, what people are asking for every day, because I was born in Africa, I was raised in Africa, I continue to go to Africa many times a year. You just speak to any ordinary woman. I think contraception might be like the 10th thing she says, if that.
But it's a basic human right to have access to it. That's when I say that they should have access. It should become available for them if they want it.
When
it should be
there is no
available.
food and there is no water, then if there is only a limited amount of aid.
But it is part of that cycle of poverty and dealing with poverty and overcoming poverty, is it not?
Well, that's kind of a Western solution, isn't it? But if the Africans are brought to the table, and the people are asked, the ordinary people, I'm not speaking about some doctor that works for some Western organization that is planted in Africa. If you speak to the ordinary woman on the streets of Africa, what is she asking for? She's asking for food. She's asking for water. She's asking for basic health care. And contraception continues to be like about the last thing that they would ever think of.
But does
now,
this Babita Sharma, the British reporter, or I guess, well, British with Indian ancestry, calls this a basic human right. And what is she saying here? It sounds like she's saying that abortion and or contraception is a basic human right. I'm not so sure about that, actually. And okay, I think you could guess what I think about abortion, but if anyone wonders, I am strongly opposed to it. It might be, we might have to tolerate it in extreme cases, and that's about it. That's my opinion on it. My general opinion is that abortion is murder, and when there's a conflict between the life of the mother and the life of the child, fine. That's one of the extreme cases where I probably would say that okay, we have to tolerate it in these cases. But calling this a basic human right in a part of the world where there is still real poverty and real starvation just sounds insane to me. I won't dig into it any deeper right now. That's just what I had to say about this thing. But let's listen a little more, and maybe we can watch a little too. Let's see here.
But does that not play into the wider conversation about poverty and food? If they have access to contraception, if they can deal with birth control, if they can have a family planning program in place, then it deals with the issues of poverty as well.
That is the Western solution. Why don't you listen to the people first? Now, talking about something like contraception, in all this talk about contraception, the one thing that I have never heard of in all my time trying to track all these things is something like the side effects of contraception. No one ever tells the African women when they come to promote contraception across the different African countries. No one talks about it. Now, recently, I spoke to some women in Africa who had contraception inserted into them. I think it was something like the IUD and the implanon. And these women were crying. I found myself consoling women who had actually been experiencing these side effects that they had never heard of before. No one ever told them. But someone from a Western organization, one of these Western organizations in Africa, came and put the IUDs into them and told them this is what you need to come out of poverty. That is not what African women need. That is not the single indicator to come out of poverty. What Africans need is education.
They do, indeed.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much to add here, more than, well, basically we should just applaud this this woman for standing up for what is right. And well, we don't have to boo the reporter, but is this reporting or is this debating? I wonder. I mean, I never claimed that I am unbiased or anything like that, but I am not the BBC. I am a Swede Speaks, and my perspective should be known by now, and if it isn't known, well, you can just look at my videos and you'll figure it out. But I'm basically usually pro-Western conservative, although I don't like when the Western left liberals are trying to push a left liberal agenda on other countries. And with that being said, let's carry on.
It's about education as well, so that they understand their basic human rights. It's not just about the West coming and imposing
to you. These are colonial thoughts, so you better be careful expressing them. According to whom? So there are Africans who don't have access to education. What children are looking for is a way to get into school. Someone like myself, I was born in Africa, I was raised in Africa. My lifeline out of poverty was education. It was not contraception. And there are so many other women who have walked the same path as I have without ever having to take recourse to some contraception provided by the British government or the United States government.
So you're you're then also generalizing, speaking on behalf of every woman on the continent, saying that the majority of them.
You're talking about a general solution when Africa is actually not a monolithic society.
All I'm saying is that they should have the right to have access to.
Well, they do. We have contraception in Africa. As a matter of fact, a lot of the aid money is being actually redirected to provision of things like contraception.
Well, when the United Nations says that more than 200 million women don't have access to it, then it's contradicting what you're saying.
Those people, I am not contradicting them. I'm saying these are the calculations by the United Nations. But how many of those 200 million women are actually asking for it? There is a difference between what the United Nations now calls the unmet need and the unmet demand. What the African women are actually dying of.
When we go back to education, perhaps they're unaware.
Well, it's for someone like yourself, someone so kind and generous from the West to come tell them that what they need is contraception to come out of poverty. Now you give them contraception, and the next day they still don't have work. The following year they still don't have work.
Obianuju, I would really love to discuss this with the with you. We're just 10 seconds to go off air, so thank you very much for joining. Thank you very much for joining us here on the program. Do stay with us. We've got lots more.
Oh, wasn't that comment wonderful? Maybe they're just unaware. You know, I was a Marxist once, and I was a Marxist for a few years. I would argue that I was a Marxist for 4 years, although I would shift my party political affiliation twice, well, actually 3 times, but I joined the Labour Party, then I left them and went to the party called Red in Norway, which was like the hardline Marxist, then I went back to the Labour Party, and then I left the socialist ideology altogether. But what I know about leftist thinking is this: the idea that people don't know what's good for them and someone else has to tell it to them. And this is the truth when it comes to that workers don't know what's good for them, and that's why they are voting for what we on the left used to call right-wing populists, people like the Sweden Democrats, the Progress Party in Norway, Donald Trump, etc. And also, in this case, that these poor Africans, they don't know what's good for them. So we the Western left liberals, we have to tell them that, and we'll send them money and help them with money, but this money will be marked for one specific purpose. And if they don't want that, well, they should want it. They should demand it, even if they aren't. I mean, that's the way the left thinks. And we could talk about imperialism. The left loves the word imperialism, but what is this if it isn't ideological imperialism? And I mean, I'm all for some basic values, and I think that some values are better than others. But actually, the West wasn't always pro-abortion. The West turned pro-abortion when Marxist thinking got into the system. So in this case, I'm with the Nigerian. I have to learn her name now. Obianuju Ekeocha against this leftist chauvinist. And I think I actually said all I need to say about this. I just wanted to show you this discussion and chip in with a few words on it. And that's really all I have to say about this right now. And kudos to this Obianuju Ekeocha for doing what she's doing. She's got an organization called COL, I think. Let's see what it stands for. It says... let's see. One moment. Culture of Life, Africa. And actually I found a very interesting article there. I will post that article. I found an article where she discussed, this organization, I don't know who wrote it, but this organization discusses how the Trump administration doesn't want to give money to organizations promoting or rather forcing abortion on African countries. And it seemed like they were actually in favor of Trump's policies here, which I find interesting. I also found a letter from her which she wrote a few years ago to Melinda Gates, where she wrote, "We don't need your contraception." And that's also interesting. So I will post some of these interesting links. And now that's really all I have to say about this. So I would like to thank the people who are supporting this channel through prayers, through Patreon, through PayPal. That's all greatly appreciated. And there are tiers for patrons and donors. As I've said a few times now, I'm working on getting them out. I might get them out today or maybe tomorrow, but at least this week. And for information about that, look in the description box below. And if you like this channel, please subscribe. Please share my videos. If you got something to say, if you agree, if you disagree, comment below. And if you like this video, please like it. And of course, I would also like to encourage you to support this channel. And I will include all the necessary information in the description box below. This is Swede Speaks. Have a nice day.